today before we bring them into start with their own teachings or their own presentations. But before I go to that, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Remi Ogunsoya. I am the head of product and partnerships here at CyberPay, and I'll be the host for the webinar today. We have 3 guest speakers for the webinar today. The first guest speaker is Mr. Mike Odusomi. Mr. Mike is the CEO and the president of Maxwell's Consulting Limited. Maxwell's Consulting Limited is a fraud, risk, and management company. It's also a cybersecurity company, and he is also into mobile application security. Mr. Mike's profile will be spoken about or also be shared when it's time for Mr. Mike to speak. So I'll be talking more about Mr. Mike when it's time for Mr. Mike to come on board. We also have Mr. Peter Oswere. Mr. Peter Oswere is the CTO of the Cyberspace Group. When it's time for Mr. Peter to speak, we'll be talking more about his profile as well. We also have Mr. Elvis Ifekam. Mr. Elvis Ifekam is the country head of CyberPay. So once again, I'd like to say welcome to everybody to the webinar. Let's stick together with us and pay attention. There will be time for Q&A. Immediately after the speakers are done with their presentation, we'll be taking questions and answers, either for people who would like to speak or people who would like to type. Or you can start dropping your questions in the Q&A room or in the Q&A chat box so that we can pick up questions from there. So the next item on the agenda is to give a brief summary of who Mr. Mike Odusomi is. Mr. Mike Odusomi, like I said before, is the CEO and president of Maxwell's Consulting Limited, a fraud risk management, cybersecurity, and mobile app security organization that is based in Lagos, Nigeria. The company also has an affiliate office in New York, United States of America. In his role, he is responsible for setting the business and strategic directions of the company, and is also responsible for managing the day-to-day decisions in Maxwell Consulting Limited. Prior to leading Maxwell, Mr. Mike was a product strategy director at CA Technologies, which is formerly Computer Associates, at their European headquarters in London, UK, and later at CA Global HQ in New York, where he led the product development and marketing teams for enterprise information security and IT service management line of business technology solutions. Since returning to Nigerian business environments, Mr. Mike has been very active in cybersecurity industry forums in the country as a panelist and speaker at various industry events. He has successfully co-hosted annual cybersecurity and banking fraud summit events here in Lagos in conjunction with OneSpan Vasco Data Security. Maxwell has also hosted various workshops for the CBN and financial sector stakeholders on pressing industry challenges, including open banking, electronic financial fraud risk management, data privacy, and other pressing information security and data privacy issues impacting the ecosystem in Nigeria. He is an active member of the International Information System Security Certification Consortium in New York City chapter. He is a certified Information System Security CISSP professional and a member of the FinTech Association of Nigeria. He has contributed white papers and articles on information security to various industry publications, including Nigeria Electronic Fraud Forum Annual Reports, which is the NEFF, Technology Banker Magazine, and others. Mr. Mike started his career as an engineer at NCR Corporation, Broad Street, Lagos, after graduating with BSc Electronics Engineering from the University of Ife. I feel like I hear some people saying Great Ife. He later moved to NCR London, UK, as a field service engineer, covering large retail and financial services customers across the UK. He completed his postgraduate studies at Brunel University, Oxbridge, with an MSc degree in data communication systems and holds an MBA from Warwick Business School, University of Warwick, and also Coventry, UK. He is a 2019 Rotarian inductee of the Rotary Club of Lagos, District 9110, and a Paul Harrison Fellow. His extracurricular activities include golfing, jazz concerts, and watching live sports events. Please join me as we welcome Mr. Mike Odusami to take up this presentation for the day. You're welcome, Mr. Mike.
Thank you, Remy. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for inviting me. I'm going to now try to do a bit of manipulation. First, I need to share my screen so that you can see a few slides that I will share with you, and then we will then go through the brief presentation. So let me share my screen number one, which is this one. Okay, and then we can get started. Then I will go into presentation. I'm going to do this guy. Okay, and now I'm going to swap screen. Okay. Actually, okay, let me do this. So yes, thank you so much, CyberPay for inviting me here today, and really appreciate the invitation. Quite honored to be able to speak here today. Of course, talking about fraud is it's a topical issue all the time, whether we're in the payment or financial information systems or even within your own organizations. Even though our focus at Maxsuit and on CyberPay, of course, is in the financial services sector. Cybersecurity, it's an area that is a requirement across the board, regardless of the sector. So let me go into the formal presentation right now. Actually, I'm going to change my screen a little bit so that I can be making sure my slide on the right camera. So I have 3 screens here. So let me share my desktop, that one. Then I can move. Just give me a minute. Okay. And I can this guy. Okay. Can you guys see any of my presentation right now?
No.
No,
but
not
I
yet.
can
Okay,
see
let me
your laptop
move. Okay, let me just quickly stop the share so I can to exit that. Just give me 1 minute. There's a problem when you're using a multiple screen with Zoom. So I'm gonna make sure.
You were trying to drag it in, so you can continue with that.
Okay, yes. Can you see any screen now? Any presentation?
It's showing your desktop, I presume.
Oh, is it desktop mode now, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's in desktop mode.
Okay. All right, I'll go with it. You can see the screen anyway. It just might mean that my camera might be a little bit skewed. Okay, no worries. We'll start again. So thank you for the glowing introduction. That's a little bit about me. So just still working at MD of Maxfield, and we focus mostly on the financial services sector, like I said, and of course, payment comes under that, in addition to the traditional banks that we work with. So this morning I will just go through a brief area, just kind of take a look at what is happening globally around the fraud threats that we see across the board, both in payments and financial institutions, and the trends that we're seeing. And then we'll also take a look at our own fraud landscape, i.e. through the reports. I don't know if for those in the sector, you probably are aware of a quarterly report that Nigerian Interbank Settlements produces on reported frauds by all the financial institutions, where they try to do a very nice analytics of all the types of fraud that we see, whether or the sources of those fraud and so on. You will see an example of that just to see what is happening in our own fraud landscapes. Of course, we also follow a lot of the headlines around fraud, when it happens within a bank or within a payments services organization. We get to hear that and report about that. So we'll see what is most common, what the trends are, because it is when we know what is happening that we can, of course, deploy the right technology and also the right regulations by the regulators, mostly CBN in Nigeria and a few of other government agencies, to try and make sure that we have the right regulation to enforce, which will be enforced by on the institutions. So everybody's familiar with the old threats. They're still there. They're never going to go away. I think what we've seen in general is like a lot of those fraud techniques that we were familiar with are now being powered by better technology, better coordination, and most importantly, now we're using artificial intelligence, AI, to power some
Excuse me,
of
sir.
those. Yes.
Are you speaking from your slide already?
Yes.
Oh, we're
What's
only seeing we're not seeing the slide.
Oh, you're not seeing the slide? What are you saying now?
Just like a landscape, rocky landscape,
Oh, okay.
maybe
Oh, I
your
thought you were able
desktop.
to see. Okay, let me start and see if I can move. If I can move it to the right screen. Let's do that again now. Hold on just 1 minute. Okay. All right. So I'm just moving. I'll go back into where we were before. Now let me.
Yes.
Okay, and then let's do this. Okay. Okay. So you can see. Oh no, this is not the
Yeah, we
one.
can do presentation mode now.
I can do. Okay, I think I'm actually already in presentation mode. Let me see. Oh, interesting, because it's coming up. Okay, you know what? I will go back, and this is really what I want. Let me swap the screen. So it happens when you have so many screens going.
As a techie.
Yes, just give me a minute. Let me go back again and restart this.
All right, sir.
I will stop share now. So you can still see the landscape screen, right? Okay,
Yeah.
let's stop share. Okay, let me stop the share for now. And then I will let me start the presentation mode and make sure the right screen is actually shared before I share the screen. Okay. So I want this to be. All right, you know what, we'll do that. You just that I might not be looking directly at the camera, but we'll try to see what we can do. Share screen. Share desktop 1. Hopefully you can see the screen now in full screen. Can you see it? Can you see my share?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
You're on agenda.
is it full screen?
Not full.
There shouldn't be anything else that is this. It should
I'm
show.
seeing the other side that shows the next slide, if it's okay by you that way.
Which one?
I'm seeing your actual agenda screen, then the next screen that shows the fraud threats just by the
Oh,
right.
okay. So in that case, let me swap this way. Just 1 minute.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, is this better now? Okay.
Yes.
All right, we do this. Sorry about that. Yeah.
It's fine. Thank
I
you.
have 3 screens, so it's always a challenge. Okay. So hopefully we have the right screens now. You can see my fraud threats and trends now, right?
Yes.
Okay, full screen, good. So, like I was saying, the traditional fraud techniques, they're never going to go away. They're still very prevalent. They're still very dominant, even in, especially in our own climate. But what we're seeing across the globe is that there's a lot of movement more towards the AI-powered techniques. So just for the sake of those who are not familiar with the different techniques, phishing is usually the most common one we see all over the place, where you get sent an email that says, I'm coming from GTB or Zenith Bank or any of the financial institutions that says, oh, you do this and that, and then there's a link inside there that tells you to click on, so they send that to thousands and millions of people, or you get an SMS text that says, oh, you need to do this and that, or they even phone you and say, oh, we're calling from the technical support team in the bank, and we want you to do this and that. So those are very common. They're still still out there. We still see them. Slightly more sophisticated is where you now have malwares, fake software that could hide within your phone device to capture mostly your credentials. Those ones again are always still there. For people that visit, it depends on the website that you visit or your mobile device. You might end up catching one of those software installed on your phone, and you don't even know about it, and they're able to capture information about you either on the phone or on the computer, and then use that to kind of compromise or defraud or access your account. Also, we have rogue mobile apps. Thank God those are beginning to come down a little bit, but because people like Android and Apple and so on their stores, app stores are beginning to kind of cut down on that a little bit by making sure that before you can publish an app, you actually get vetted as a publisher. In the past, you can have a whole app that will be sitting out there that will look and feel like a banking app, and you download it, and then you actually, again, just used to capture. And of course, the card not present fraud, where people defraud, I think I'll put things like, online commerce, e-commerce under that category. And another category I didn't mention, of course, that we see in our area is a POS fraud a lot. So all those traditional frauds are not going to go away. But what we're seeing now is the emerging techniques of using smarter, better systems to power those techniques. So, for example, in the past, maybe you get an email, there will be a lot of grammatical error, there will be a lot of spelling errors in them, and so on and so forth. Now, with the power of AI, they can generate almost near accurate that will mimic exactly what a bank would look like when they send an email to you. There's no more grammar issues there. And most importantly, is they can generate variants of these letters, millions of them, and send them across to you. So meaning that they are much more difficult to detect. Malware as a service is now, again, very prevalent globally, where people can actually now buy the type of malware you want. You can go to some of those websites, those deep fake websites where you can buy, software malware as a service for people that are really wanting to go into that. So again, it's a kind of a way of multiplying the effect or the impact of all these fraud techniques millions of times than we used to have. An area that is also of concern, of course, globally and also within our own landscape is insider collusion, where ex-employee or ex-staff that are very, very familiar with the systems and so on collude with others to try and defraud and gain access, unauthorized access to people's account. We now have I mean, we're in Nigeria actually relative to the rest of a lot of other countries. We've always had what we call faster payment or instant payment infrastructure, thanks to the work done by a lot of people in the past, maybe 10, 20 years ago, where we can actually have instant payments either on our phone and so on. Well, what that means is that faster payment means that it's a lot more attractive for people to be able to gain access and to use access to your account. Account takeover fraud is still prevalent there. There's a new area called the authorized push payment fraud, which is again really more of a social engineering fraud, where somebody is convinced to actually willingly send money to somebody, either through some scam or some lies and so on. And then you send that information, you send it to that victim. And then what they do, of course, they have what they call mule accounts. These are accounts that are specifically set up just to distribute stolen funds. So they're able to move a lot of money out very quickly and then, cash out all those all the money that was stolen. And it's a very, very important area. I kind of put the emphasis on it here a little bit because there are activities around the world that might eventually get to us in Nigeria as well. And that will have implications for us as, the financial institutions and the banks, if those regulations eventually get there. But in a nutshell, I will speak a little bit about it. Is the fact that they are now making APP frauds to be the onus is now on the banks or the financial institution to compensate the victims when those frauds happen. In other words, they're trying to get them that to pay a little bit more attention to their customers, because again, if this is happening from within a bank where somebody steals money from an account and moves to other banks, well, if you had a proper KYC process in place and so on, and new technologies that are now I will talk about a little bit, you should be able to design some pattern or be able to know those customers anyway. But I'll talk about that, some of the new regulations that are coming when I get into the regulatory slide. But what is important here is that, even I mentioned all of this, the traditional other types of threats that we know about, cyber threats that we know, whether it's a business email, compromise fraud, whether it's ransomware, is still very prevalent. It's that one, all those cuts across sectors. It's not just in the financial sector. Everybody go around that, and ransomware is the fact where they will disable your IT infrastructure, either they encrypt your data, you cannot get access to your customer information anymore until the payment is made, and so on. So making sure that, especially in the payment sectors where a lot of the vendors tend to use the cloud infrastructure, making sure that you have the right cloud security architecture in place becomes very, very important. So globally, like I mentioned, as an offshoot of that advanced authorized payment fraud, push payment fraud, there's a lot of increase globally in kind of mule account activity. You can see these numbers there from one of the vendors out there. There's been a huge increase in also about account takeover fraud. And of course, increase in APP fraud that's kind of like where the emphasis is on. It's very effective in a way, APP fraud, because effectively you are getting the owner of the account to move their money willingly into an account that they don't belong to, either using some scam or using some tricks on them that will make them do that. And once that money is gone, like I mentioned earlier, it gets distributed to different accounts which have been set up purposely for those accounts. Some of them are unwillingly, the whole idea is that they move that money into the proper financial system, and it's very difficult to trace. That is really what is happening with that. So, and then, like I mentioned, the AI-powered fraud in a nutshell, a lot of this fraud now succeed because of the use of AI, especially, we have very, very realistic videos of people talking. We have people's voices can now be cloned. All they need to do is record your voice once, and they can use it to say different things that you're not saying. There's a lot of verification fraud, and of course, the APP fraud I mentioned. So I haven't said that about AI, using for the bad things. There's also, of course, the good part of AI, which I will talk about again, because when it comes to machine learning, data analytics, to try and design some of this fraud, find out where the money is going, or behavioral techniques, AI plays a big role as well in those. So it's kind of like you can use AI for good as well as you can use it for bad. So, with AI now, you can have a proactive fraud management. You can actually bring in new policies in place that says, oh, this is not the normal behavior of this account, and then have somebody take a look at it or do some intervention to reduce the effect. We are now beginning to move, the whole technology is moving. I will talk about that in the few slides, where we're moving from focus on authentication, i.e. user credentials, less use of passwords, to start using machine learning and AI and behavioral techniques to try and catch fraud. So we're moving beyond authentication a little bit now. Okay. So a few numbers from our own environment. This is numbers from Q1 of 2024 by NIBS, Nigerian Interbank Settlement Systems. They aggregate all the reported data across the country to tell us what is happening and where it's happening. Very, very instructive to see. Social engineering attack is very, very prevalent, still very prevalent in our environment. People trick people into sending money, and I'm sure everybody in the audience have received a WhatsApp or a message saying, they hack into WhatsApp group. I see that a lot these days, where a WhatsApp group is hacked into, and then they send you notes and say, "Oh, could you please pay me? Pay somebody this money. My account is faulty. I have an issue with my account," and so on and so forth. So it's very, very prevalent. It's still there. Again, we'll talk about it later, but the solution to it is that we can use technology, and we can also use a lot of user awareness and user education around this. That has to be a continuous process by all the stakeholders in the industry. You can see that web server hacking, it probably generates a lot of money. That is usually when they hack into that and there's a ransomware situation here, because in that case they're dealing business to business. They can extort a lot of money from the victim, from the organizations. And most organizations, because of the nature of it, they want to keep it quiet. They want to settle as quickly as possible to avoid the bad press that could that normally follow. If your website is down, or people are not able to use your payment infrastructure, you probably want to do something about it very, very quickly. Also worth mentioning, card theft is still there. I mean, that means, if in that case, a lot of our cards, at least in Nigeria, we tend to use PIN to activate or to be able to perform a transaction. So they must also have your PIN number to be able to use that. But social engineering, a big issue. People still get deceived. A lot of education is needed in that space. So a little bit of talk of the same about those numbers here. There's been a major increase in losses, again, to some of the traditional techniques that we use. ATM frauds are still out there. Mobile payments. I think mobile payment is very important, again, for organizations such as CyberPay and other payment organizations, because most of your transactions tend to be done on the mobile platform. So, and that means that, it's very, very attractive for fraudsters to pay attention to using different techniques to access people's information or to steal credentials on mobile devices. Again, there's got to be a technology reaction to that. There's got to be also a regulatory reaction to that, some of which we will talk about later on. But we now have the capability to at least to control, at least your own little sandbox within a mobile device, so that you can make sure that you can control what comes in and what goes out. If you don't want people to capture the screenshots on it, or you don't want people to install a kill logout to all the malwares that I spoke to about earlier, we now have the technology to prevent that. We've seen a lot of high-profile breaches. Recently, I think it was one of the PSBs that got taken for about 6.5 billion, and that money was quickly distributed to so many accounts, just kind of following the method, the mole accounts that I mentioned earlier, where they have hundreds of accounts set up, either in other banks to move the money out. Okay. Online banking, again, because a lot of those are very credential based. Most of the banks, and that's the area that we've been working with as an organization with many banks in Nigeria, is to try and increase the level of authentication. We call it strong authentication, to make sure that there's two-factor authentication. There's a traditional way of sending SMS OTPs to customers, which is the easiest and the cheapest way to do it. But unfortunately, that cannot be, we've seen that can be compromised very easily, SMS OTP, especially, when people travel outside the country and so on, then probably not even able to receive those SMS OTP. So we're moving more towards using actual authenticators, either in form of mobile authenticators or using a hardware token authenticator, to make sure that it's independent of where you are or what phone you use. You can generate a unique one-time password to enable your your transaction. Mobile payment, again, the same swap thing is really because people want to be able to capture one-time password sent by your bank. So if we avoid the SMS OTP completely, then SIM swap become redundant as a fraud technique for them. So that's what a lot of the banks or even high net worth individuals are using to make sure, or even corporate accounts to make sure that you protect your account, the credentials on your account with two-factor authentication. I already spoke a lot about social engineering, where they call you, they send you email, they hack into your WhatsApp group and so on and so forth to deceive you, to make you willingly send money to them. Okay, this is really more of a summary of some of the other reports from another organization within the country. Mobile fraud, I think across the board, regardless of who created the report or where you get that information from, you can see a common trend. Mobile is definitely a very, very attractive platform these days, and it's accounting for a very large number of transactions. We also have POS transactions, and security either on the platform itself to the merchant education and so on is needed. Identity fraud is always there. Again, everything that is based on credentials, it means that something can be stolen and something can be reused to take over your account. An interesting note here is that we've seen increase in cross-border fraud. Is fraud perpetuated by people outside the country on Nigerians, other individual or the financial institutions? Again, that's of course a cause of concern for all of us, all the stakeholders in the industries, and I'm sure there'll be much more efforts being played to try and minimize this, so that we are not seen as a weak spot, as a soft spot for fraud by outsiders. Okay. Key drivers, I think nobody needs any much education around here. Digital transformation as a concerted effort by different agencies and the government. We've been pushing people towards more of digital banking, mobile banking, and so on over the last 10 or 20 years. So, of course, a lot of our transactions are now much more done electronically because it's also convenient for us, both the users as well as the providers. So we still need to educate our people a lot about the vulnerabilities that are tracked. We've seen situations where people share their PIN, casually with their help to go and, get money for them from an ATM, or you see, elderly person comes to an ATM and gives his card and a PIN to somebody who is standing there to help her operate the machine and so on and so forth. So a lot of people still don't understand the implications of this. Again, education, especially for you guys. Whom I'm hoping that you deal more with younger generations that can easily be, they understand technology, they can be educated better. You can also use the opportunity to educate them on the security implications of what they're doing. Regulations are always coming. I did mention the regulation around the world, which I will speak about shortly, around the APP fraud, authorized push payment fraud that is beginning to happen, starting from the UK. As usual, the EU is adopting it, and some of the payment rails in the US, like Zelle and Co, are also trying to adopt that. I will talk about this shortly, but regulations are always, and technology are probably one of the best ways we can counter some of this fraud. In terms of regulations, of course, in Nigeria, CBN is the core. I'm sure everybody's familiar with them. They've done a lot in the past around trying to make sure that we shore up security around the different aspects of the different financial channels, whether it's USSD, whether it's online banking and mobile, and they constantly bring out new directives and regulations to guide most of the providers. NIBS, I mentioned, the central organization that capture some of the data that I shared with you. They also provide it's a national switch, of course, for that we use for payments and so on. So they see a lot of the transactions come through them. So again, they can help a lot. And then money laundering, which is the part around, being able to know who your customers are, strong KYC and so on, is becoming very, very important now. And then also the use of technologies to understand the behavior of your customers. If somebody has, I don't know, 500,000 in his account over the last say 1 year or 18 months, and then suddenly you get 10 million in that account today. I think that should raise suspicion. You should have a technology in place to be able to help you to manage that and perform the necessary action on that. So some of the regulatory responses, Cybercrime Act, that's actually a national act now in Nigeria. We talked about different cybercrime, the penalties for it, the responsibility of the different stakeholders. Very, very important that everybody follow that. We also have the Nigerian Data Protection Act, which for those who are not familiar with it, we used to be called the NDPR before it became an act, I believe last year, and signed into a bill. So that basically puts a lot of responsibilities on us, our stakeholders, whether you're a payment company, you're a bank, or you, as long as you operate a platform where customer personal data is processed or managed, then you would you have some responsibility to make sure that data is managed and secured properly. I did mention some of the regulatory directives and regulations by the CBN. Most of them, the good thing is that most of them are published on their website as well. You can go to the CBN website and see some of their directives around the different channels. Internal systems. When we got into the industry about almost 20 years ago now, about 15 years ago, internal system was a focus of the CBN, where they put some challenge on and if you operate a financial system, then you have to put some strong authentication to guide people to manage people's access to your key financial system infrastructure, whether it's your core banking applications and so on and so on, and customer account information. So that was a start. But after that, of course, we've had open banking regulations or guidelines that were set. Again, open banking is it's a whole it's a system around enabling third party to have access to banking information, because the traditional banks hold so much information. I'm sure companies such as CyberPay already take use of that. So through API, application programming interface, you can connect and you can provide value-added services to your customers using those connections to the bank. Again, that needs to be regulated, that needs to be managed, because there's a security vulnerability in those APIs that needs to be managed. So there's a whole security guidelines around open banking. USSD channel in the past, Nigeria and probably other African countries are actually very one of the champions of USSD transaction or payment channels. But recently, or well, maybe about 5 years ago, the CBN came up with a guideline to make sure that we can protect, transaction above a certain amount. You must have certain security in place to be able to perform those transactions. And of course, anybody that touch credit cards, the industry have their card industry standard for managing data security on every card that is used. And then the PSD2, PSD3, that's really an open banking that started in Europe. Again, as part of being able to allow third parties to connect to the banking system to provide a value-added service, they added a whole layer around the secure customer authentication, where you have to make sure that the customer is authenticated. There's two-factor authentication. You have what we call dynamic linking, where the OTP that you use for that transaction is actually generated from the amount that you are trying to transfer, so that if anything changes in the amount, then that OTP becomes invalid. So there's a lot of technology that I'll talk a little bit briefly about this, but of course, in a session like this, we can only touch the surface. If anybody has more questions around this or wants to go in depth, I'm certainly available to provide more information about it. Now, the last one here is the emerging regulation that I mentioned earlier when I was talking about APP fraud. So really what this is doing is payment services regulation originating in the UK. EU is looking at it. The US, because a lot of the payments, of course, in the hands of private organizations in the US like Zelle and Co. So they're also looking at it. It's a way, basically, is saying that victims will be reimbursed by the banks when APP fraud happens. That is money. If I move money from my account to another bank account and then they move it to mole accounts all over the place, then both banks are responsible. I think at the moment it's 50-50 responsibility to reimburse the victim. I mean, it's not yet in Nigeria. I'm not saying that it's going to come here, but it's something that is now being discussed. As a matter of fact, I think the UK was meant to start it in October, this coming October, to actually start enforcing it. But I think there's a lot of debate about pushing that date forward. So what this really means is that they're getting the banks to take a closer look at the KYC process. So whoever has an account in the bank should be well known to the bank using the regular KYC techniques that they use. And I believe, for payment organizations as well, it's going to be very, very important. There's also a need to understand the behavior of your customers more. And those kind of things can only be done using a lot of the new technology that I mentioned, AI techniques, to be able to know the behavior of your customer and be able to predict what they're going to do and not what they're not going to do, and also to be able to predict a transaction. As if it's suspicious, then you're able to quickly raise the flag on that transaction. So what it will mean, of course, is that maybe transaction might become slower in some places, or you might start having buckets of customers, your well-known customers that have been around you for ages. You can have a bucket for them, and you can have new accounts that were opened, say, within the last 6 months, within the last 1 year. You can have a different way of treating those accounts. So, but there's a whole discussion around this payment services regulation, especially in Europe now, because the banks, of course, are concerned about reimbursing victims for fraud and being able to prove that, yes, this victim is actually in collusion with the fraudsters and so on and so forth. So watch it. It might eventually get to us as well, but it's worth noting. It talked about some of this already. This is really a summary of my next slide, where I try to break it down into a little bit more details of what we're doing here. I mean, the baseline for every financial transaction is we must have encryption, either for data at rest, i.e. data stored within a storage platform, or data that's been transmitted across the wire. There must be encryption. I mean, we all have the TLS protocols and so on now. So pretty much communication between the bank or financial institutions and the customer should be encrypted, so that nobody should be able to eavesdrop on the information that's been sent across. Of course, tokenization is idea where rather than sending the customer full information, you create a unique one-time token for that transaction, and that is being used so that even if somebody captures it, you will not be able to use it for the next transaction. Behavioral analytics, very, very important these days, especially when I talk about the advanced authorized push payment frauds, where you're able to understand how your customers behave, understand their accounts, how they use their account, and so on, their normal behavior. And again, that is where things like AI is coming to. That's part of the good part of the AI, where we're able to use that to do those prediction. Authentication, again, as we move more and more away from password-based systems, authentication, because that's the foundational part of people being able to access your account, people being able to identify themselves when they go online. So we're able to do that with advanced techniques. So beyond OTP now, we're having biometrics on the phone. We're having different standards that I mentioned earlier, and then a fraud detection system, fraud analytics. Most of them are machine learning, AI-based systems that we're beginning to talk to customers about. So kind of a quick, like a capstone to what I've been saying in terms of the different techniques that are being used, and then the kind of frauds that can be perpetuated by them. Credential is the most common one. Your username, your password to the account is the easiest one to steal, easiest one to access and take over your account. Either they trick into it, or that we've had so many breaches where customer data is stolen from a large institution. So that means their credentials and their names, and then these have been sold on the dark web by people who are willing to, buy millions of account credentials and hoping that one or two of them will work eventually, and that will be their payday. So of course we responded to those by saying, okay, let's start using one-time password in addition to the normal what you know and what you have. So you have your password, you have your PIN, but you also need to generate a unique code. I mentioned SMS OTP in the past. That's an area that where everybody's moving away from, because SMS channel communication can be compromised. So we are going towards more of using actual authenticators either mobile on the mobile device or actually a standalone hardware device to generate the one-time token. We're also doing biometrics. I mentioned that, where even on the phone, you have to use your finger or your face to even be able to generate the OTP. So even if somebody steals your phone, they're still not going to be able to access the authenticator to generate. And then there's a whole new area called passwordless authentication that been discussed these days. This is a situation where, because we know that, well, people want to steal credentials. How about if we don't store that credential anymore? If we don't store people's password anymore, then there's really nothing to steal at the other end. So that's been happening now with a lot of this FIDO Alliance and so on that are pushing that. Transaction signing, man in the middle attack, where somebody speaks to you on the phone, you're even willingly giving them your OTP, and they want to steal your money. But what we're saying is that OTP being generated will be linked to the transaction you are making. So if anything changes either in the amount or the beneficiary of that transfer, then the OTP becomes invalid. So that's the dynamic linking that we use for that. What you see is what you sign. If you're online, you can now scan an encrypted code, not a QR code, but an encrypted code that will have all the information about the transaction you are making, and you can use you can approve it or disapprove that transaction. And then we're also using push notification, where we send secure messages between the user and the financial institution to make sure that whatever is being done, they are notified and they have to say yes or no before that transaction proceeds. I mentioned at the beginning the mobile as a platform, very, very attractive. There's a lot of security vulnerabilities happening on them. We have a technology called RASP, real-time application self-protection, or mobile app shielding, where the application can be ring-fenced. So a financial institution, a payment company can ring-fence their own application by wrapping their own mobile app around that security fence, so that things like a keylogger will not work. Screenshots cannot be taken. A lot of encryption takes place within the app, so that even if you clone the phone, you're not going to be able to use that information. So again, we're available to speak about that if necessary. Social engineering, I already talked about the APP fraud a lot. It's all about fraud detection. It's basically saying that this has to go beyond human intervention. We need to start using artificial intelligence or new technology to address fraud, to have fraud analytics and the response to the fraud. Insider collusion, a big part of our issue in our climb, as I defined earlier, this is where a trusted employee, either internally or an ex-employee, colludes with people because they understand the system very well, and they're able to gain access to unauthorized information and perform various fraudulent activities. Again, there's been a lot of technology to prevent those. We now have authentication for workforce and for staff, and also identity management, segregation of duties. All those normal traditional security techniques are used now to try to thwart that. As a matter of fact, I believe the CBN had a requirement for the financial institution to use privileged identity management now as part of their cybersecurity efforts. Number one, POS and ATM card skimming, where they put in some devices within an ATM or a POS to capture your information. Again, that's been thwarted a little bit now with the card pin or the EMV cap, the type of credit cards that we use in Nigeria to thwart that. On the right are just some of those industry standards that a lot of people in the industry will be familiar with, to make sure that we can enforce and we can implement a lot of these security techniques. In a nutshell, I think I've spoken a lot about this. Monitoring and threat intelligence is very important. There's a lot of good technology now that can now be deployed to minimize the impact, at least to be able to proactively manage fraud incidents. Employee training on not just employee, and also customer education. Actually, both of them go together. Of course, the aspects will be different on internal security, the compliance issues that needs to be followed, and best practices for employee, and then customer education, very, very important, especially in our climate. People need to understand the implications of information they give out or what they do. Like I said, I've seen situations where people send errand, either their driver to go to the bank and, ATM to get money for them, and they give them the PIN and so on and so forth. And they do it very casually as well. It's not a big deal. Or elderly people, especially in our society where they have a house help. The house help is responsible for looking in the phone and doing a lot of things for them. Again, a lot of education needs to be used to educate them better in that space. And of course, I also mentioned the CBN and NIBS and other organizations, and that try to put in different regulations. And probably more importantly is to make sure that those regulations are also enforced. What do I need to say? Just to summarize, I wasn't looking at the time, Remy. I hope we're good. The key points, just to make sure that payment fraud definitely rising. We can expect to see more in terms of regulations, in terms of technology to address it. I've mentioned AI so many times. A lot of fraud prevention is happening. We're looking into that as well and talking to some of our customers about using some of the new AI techniques to address fraud and behavioral techniques and so on. And lastly, but most importantly, is that we need to make sure that people are educated. Education. I mean, some of the financial institutions in Nigeria, I see them almost every day in the newspaper. They put an advert in the paper just to educate people about security, about don't do this, if somebody calls you, we will never call you to get this kind of information from you, and so on and so forth. So I think very, very important, especially people in the new fintech space, because younger audience, younger customers, I think is an opportunity to make sure that they develop those habits going forward of managing their financial information much better. So with that, I would conclude my slide. I'm not sure if I'm taking questions now or that will be later on. I see some comments, which I'm looking to. Oh, okay.
It will be now, but I just wanted it to round off before we do questions for the next.
Okay, all right. Let's just summarize this, what we do. If anybody has any some of our customers there, actually, let me just say that these are some of the traditional banks that we work with within the country, just for as a reference. And then my contact details, of course, also will be available maybe to Remy. If anybody needs to contact us about more, please feel free to. And with that, I say thank you for your rapt attention, and apologies for the early hiccups on the screen sharing. Hopefully this has been useful, but I'm on standby for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mike. That was a really insightful section. I mean, I learned a lot. I thought I knew so much about fraud, and I probably could never be scammed.
Thank you.
But I learned that the hackers are generating new ways to get our information. And then I also learned that the future, maybe with the FIDO Alliance technology now, we're going to a place where they don't need to keep your detail, or the tech companies will not need to keep your details for in order to ensure that fraud is avoided. I've also learned about the types of frauds that we have, the trends, the threats that we also have in the fraud ecosystem now. Then I also learned about the key drivers on of payment frauds, the regulatory bodies that are doing things around it, sensitizing and ensuring that they educate the public on how to keep our funds, our applications, and also our data. Then I also like the idea of the 50-50 refund policy. I hope that Nigeria will be able to learn from that and start refunding anyone who is affected soon. So we'll just be moving straight to question and answer. So once again, everyone, if you have questions, please drop it in the Q&A session. And then I'd like to remind us once again that this webinar is brought to you by CyberPay. Stick to the end to know more about CyberPay and all that we do. But to start with the Q&A session, I would like Titilayo or Latunji to please ask our question before I read out questions from people who post their questions. So hi, Titilayo, can you proceed, please? Okay, while we wait for Titilayo, Chibo Ogwejiofo has a question. It says, can you speak more on the process of achieving maximum security for apps, especially apps involving monetary transactions? I'm sure that you were able to take this question in the course of the presentation, but how would you want to respond to that, sir?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Yeah, well, I mean, so I mentioned one of the technologies that we use, app shielding, that we're using now to prevent, basically it creates a wall around your application because you have no control over a user's mobile device. You don't know what malware sits on it. You don't know where it's been to. As a matter of fact, some of the Chinese, the cheaper phones, they tend to even come with pre-built, routed so that they can do various things on it. Some of them even come with malware. As part of making it cheaper, they have to be able to capture information about you and to market to you. So what we do is we have the app shielding, mobile app shielding solution, which you eventually ring fence your own app within a sea of, bad things happening out there. You can make sure that only authorized the user can get into it. You can protect it with biometrics. You can make sure that nobody can screenshots what you're doing. Nobody can use keyloggers because there are malwares that can do all that now. That's sitting and capturing every type or everything that you do that you type on your phone. We make sure that we prevent all of that. And then most importantly, we encrypt the entire app within the device, so that even if somebody clones your app, your device is going to be useless to them. And for you as a publisher, what that means is that people cannot reverse engineer your app. They cannot go in and download app ABC from the App Store now and reverse engineer it and deceive customers or users into downloading and using that one that will not maybe sending information to base. So that's what we use. But again, I'm available maybe via email. We can chat more about this to go into more details about shielding of a mobile app.
Thank you, sir. I have a question from Ruben Isibo. I want to know why it is easier to ask some financial institution than others.
Why it is easier? Well, I think I'll go out on a limb and just say, look, maybe, the more focus an institution pays on a lot of these things, the better they can do it. And, you have to put some energy or some effort behind the technology. You have to put some efforts towards educating your customers, and also maybe enforcement as well. Maybe there's more enforcement, and maybe we might have a more uniform compliant by everyone, so that no financial institution should be better than the other. But as we always tell our customers, security could actually be part of your brand marketing. That you can tell your customers, you guys as a payment company, that look, my platform is secure because I've done ABC, because I can do this. Your money is secure with me. Will protect my customers. So it's going to be that banks make. I might also want to say that a lot of the older generation banks too, maybe they might have a little bit more difficulty. They have a lot of legacy platforms, legacy technologies, or technologies from disparate technologies. So there are so many factors. I don't think we can say this one single reason is why one platform or institution might be more secure than the other. And the word about more is also relative. It's all about how much control, how much cybersecurity platform installation is being put in place and managed proactively and monitored as well. Because we also have a situation where people they put a lot of this technology in, they don't even monitor them, so they don't even know when something has happened until weeks after. So there's a lot of missing, a lot of pieces that needs to be in place. I hope that answers your question in a politically correct way.
Okay. The rise in cross-border, an anonymous attendee, the rise in cross-border fraud is alarming because some of these merchants didn't subscribe to the 3DS, whereby the information needed for transaction is just the PAN, that's PAN, and expiry dates. What is the future of this cycle and dispute measure to always win this case as the issuer?
Very good question. I think in one of the slides that I had, there was that 3D Secure and all those other technologies that people like MasterCard and Visa use. Especially when you're doing transactions, so that a transaction will not go through until you get a second or third factor of authentication in place. The question sounds to be like more of a regulatory issue as well, because nobody should be able to operate a payment platform, a payment system without some key table stakes in place. The PCI DSS is a big one that anybody that does card transaction should definitely have in place. There's a minimum compliance to that. ISO 27000 and all those other information security standards are also out there. But unfortunately, our enforcement regime is still patchy. We're not universally, and then maybe even the consequences as well in terms of fines or penalties for non-compliance, you might not be 100% there. But yes, cross-border is an issue. If they see us as a soft target, then they will definitely attack. I mean, no matter how you look at it, if you steal ₦1 billion, no matter what you look at our FX rate these days, it's still a lot of money in any currency. So, I mean, we had a situation where a bank was taken for about 6.5 billion not too long ago. That's a lot of money by any calculation. So it's something that we should be taking care of, either within the ecosystem. We should talk a lot more about it. And then also, hopefully the regulators will also put some energy behind us to make sure we achieve it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mike. Thank you. Someone is asking, since they can tell that you are on different boards trying to attack the fraud event in the country. Someone is saying, is there a way to have a central code to dial in case of stolen credentials, e.g. attacks at gunpoint? I should be able to dial a code to put a PND on all my accounts.
Good question. I think there's a lot of effort being made by different agencies. I was at the EFCC not too long ago, and I can see they're doing a lot, especially on the physical part of trying to combat this thing, raiding all these areas where the Yahoo boys sit, congregate and so on and so forth. Maybe I guess what the question I was asking is, maybe we can have a more coordinated effort where a single number will trigger the police, EFCC, the banks, and everyone will be able to work on that. I think it's a good suggestion, but I do know that when you speak to the different individual government agencies or even the private or forums, there's a lot of good intentions to make sure we address it. There is ISAN. I don't know if anybody on the audience or belongs to that Information Security System of Africa, Nigeria. They meet every month, and mostly people from the payment and banking sector to share information about what they're seeing, about the frauds they're seeing. It's a very, very good forum for everybody to participate. So I guess maybe what we need is the better coordination between such organizations in the private and then the government agencies, the police and the law enforcement to make sure that we have a better coordinated effort. But yeah, it's definitely worth talking about. Thanks for that suggestion.
Okay, sir. I have Olaide Busari. Please, the technology used to tokenize a transaction through the amounts involved, which OEM provides that?
Which what provides it?
OEM provides the technology.
Like a vendor? Which vendor provides it?
Yeah, yes, that's what
I mean, there's so many people out there. Even if you talk to people on the back end of Visa or MasterCard, you can get a lot more information. I don't have any specific vendor in mind right now, but I'm sure that the issuers they also have that kind of a network of people that work with them to make sure that you can do that. So I would suggest just get to the back end on either any of those major card issuers to get more information about specific vendors. But we don't do that, the tokenization part.
Thank you, sir. We have 2 more questions, but I guess we have to go. Let me just read the last question so that we can take the next panelist. When a new bank account is created, some people may call claiming to be representatives and ask for sensitive information such as security code. My question, how do these individuals obtain your personal details? And what measures can banks implement to prevent this from happening? in addition to that, I'll just merge this person's comments. Denison mentioned that we have a bank, which I probably would not name, that has migrated to CBAS, Africa's first indigenous core banking system, and that the transition will help in combating fraud.
Okay. Let me just take the first one, which was about, when you open an account, and I've actually experienced that as well. I think it's a good observation. You open a card or you get a new card with your bank, and then the next minute you get different calls from different people asking that, oh, you just opened a blah, blah, blah. Can you give us, trying to basically, you can tell it's a scam, by the way they speak and so on. The only thing I can attribute it to is there's a leakage in the system somewhere, either within the bank itself or within NIPS, where a lot of this information eventually get to. There's a leakage somewhere. There's internal collusion. That's what I suspect is going on. There's somebody within some of those institutions that may well be leaking that information to external party that would then call you. How about that situation about more than twice now, where a new credit card, a new debit card is issued, or I apply for one, and the next minute is you get calls from different strange people asking you for more information. So the question is, how did you get that information? Again, I can only attribute it to a leak somewhere in the system where somebody is either actually selling that information or is colluding with others to see what they can get in reward. Just almost the same thing we had with the SIM swap issue as well, where people collude with telcos agents to make sure that you can swap your SIM, and then they work with you, and then all the SMS OTP that gets sent to you will be sent to the fraudster to complete transactions. So insider collusion, major issue for us, especially in Nigeria. Again, it's all about law enforcement, screening our staff better than maybe we do now, and so on and so forth. But it's a major issue. The second question about the CBAS, I'm not too familiar with these new core banking applications, but I know we've had some indigenous core banking applications in the past, and I believe they work well, they secure well, they use a lot of open source security to make sure they're secure. So I can't really vouch for how it works. I'm familiar with the more traditional core banking, the Finacle of this world and so on, FlexCube, that people use Phoenix, and a few other one. I think T24 is another one that we've worked with, and we've done a lot of integration with the two-factor authentication with our customers.
Okay.
I hope that helped, but if there are any more questions, you can send it to you by chat or email, and we can always circle back on those.
Thank you. So since we're still talking about mobile phones and stealing information leading to fraud, someone is asking that point of robbery, or if the phone or system, which is the laptop, gets missing, what are the typical informations that the hackers just majorly look out for? I'm guessing that this person wants to know how to guard those informations to ensure that they are not leaked even after devices are stolen. And in addition, someone asked that what are the measures that banks should take to ensure that they limit fraud?
Okay, so to the first question, again, it's all about how we manage our private information. I mean, at a minimum, every phone device that we have must be protected by either biometric or by PIN. I don't think there's any phone now. Maybe there's still some phone that come out, but most of them provide you that option so that you will be able to secure your phone, even if it's stolen. And then even if they open it up from you, after a while, that thing will go into a sleep mode again. I will need a PIN. So definitely PIN or biometric is critical. If you don't have it enforced, you should have it done. Apple, for those who are on Apple devices, they've actually come up with a new recent system where you cannot even change those PIN unless you are within a certain location. So if somebody steals your phone and then you get your PIN to open that device, and they try to change it, it will not work unless you're in your previously defined location. So you use location to track that. I'm sure maybe the Android platform too will adopt that kind of techniques in the future. That's been a major issue, because we've seen people, they steal your phone within a bar or in a restaurant or somewhere, And because it was open, they're able to go in quickly and change the PIN on it so they can continue to use it. So you will not be able to do that. So it's actually going to be a delayed impact. So we'll see. And I think, like I said, most of what I've said regarding fraud, the technology, the regulatory response to it, have been adopted by the banks and the payment organizations to different extents. Naturally, the traditional banks have been far ahead of the payment company in enforcing or implementing some of these security techniques. So there are different stages of it. That's what I can say. And then some are enforcing it, or some are implementing security more than the others. Some are making sure that, yeah, before you can do a transaction on that platform, you must have two-factor authentication, for example. Or if you want to do above a certain amount, you must have it. We're not going to use SMS for you. So different people, banks are adopting different techniques. As long as they're within the regulatory compliance, I guess that's what it means. Some banks still use SMS OTP, even though we know there's a lot of risk around it, but they still feel like it's cheaper, it's quicker for them to use. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. So I'll take the last question, and that's Titilayo Latunji, because that's I called person earlier to speak. Titilayo, can we have you, please? So that we can move to the next panelist.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yes, so please, I would like to ask, what other constraints can non-financial organization put in place in order to minimize or mitigate the issues of fraud?
Okay. Okay, good question. Thank you, Siti. So within the industry, within the bank, there's always that debate about how do you balance friction and transaction. So, because you don't want to impede somebody performing a transaction, especially if it's a genuine person. So, and then of course you want to stop a fraudster. So I think the best approach has been to try and use as much technology as possible to understand the behavior of a customer. If a customer is constantly buying food from a certain restaurant, every time, maybe you can reduce the barrier or the challenge to that customer anytime he's doing that transaction. So there's always going to be a balance. But if somebody is now trying to, so they use we call it adaptive authentication is the term that they use, so they can adapt the challenge that you face based on what you're doing. So if you're performing a regular routine transaction, buying fuel at a gas station, you're not spending more than your normal 10,000, 20,000 naira fuel is fine. But you want to make a purchase of say 500 or 2 million with your card, then maybe they throw a bit more challenge to you. So they try to just use that, what we call adaptive authentication, as one of the techniques to make sure that they minimize friction, because there's always going to be that balance to make sure that you don't unnecessarily impede a customer that wants to perform a genuine transaction, but at the same time you want to stop the fraudster. So you have to kind of use as much technology as we can and within reasonable to try and mitigate that. So you don't want to stop people definitely from performing transaction, but at the same time, you don't want to let them perform transaction with unlimited constraints, especially if it's a one-off, if it's not something that they've done before. So that's what some of the banks are doing, adaptive authentication and using different analytics to make sure that, okay, this is routine, this is normal, I'll let it go. This is not, I will stop it. I'll throw more challenge to the user to perform before you can perform that transaction.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. There are other people who still like to ask questions, but we're trying to ensure that time doesn't work against us.
Indeed.
So please, everyone, if you have more questions, you can drop it in the Q&A session or send us a mail at team@cyberpay.net.ng. And you can also check our website on www.cyberpay.net.ng. Thank you so much, Mr. Mike. Once again, like I introduced earlier for people who joined later, Mr. Mike Odusami is the president and CEO of Maxus Consulting Limited. And he also shared his contact details on the presentation slide. So you can also reach out to him or reach out to us if there are questions or any other form of conversations, even if there are observations that you would like to send across. Thank you so much, Mr. Mike. We are really glad that you accepted our invite to do this. It's really been an engaging session, and I must tell you that I learned a lot, and I'm sure with the churn of questions that we've been getting, a lot of people learned a lot as well, and they were ready to engage. Thank you once again, sir, and please do have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, I would say once again that the webinar session is brought to you proudly by CyberPay, and we have our country manager who will be talking to us more about CyberPay. Please stay tuned while we have our next panelist to take on the next session of the webinar. Our next panelist is Mr. Peter Osuere. Mr. Peter Osuere is the Chief Technical Officer for Cyberspace Group. He is a CCIE holder with special bias for security, hardware, software, and cloud infrastructure, and video on-demand solutions. He has very vast knowledge in advanced turnkey network solution designs in both single and multi-vendor environments. He led the team and built the most complex and detailed internet high availability IHA with unlimited path on the Border Gateway Protocol platform in Nigeria. His responsibilities spans core technology, implementation and management for MPLS, VPN, BGP, and all routing protocols. He has an expertise in building all types of network redundancy solutions for both voice and data, either static or dynamic failovers for layer 2 and layer 3. He also has an expertise in building WAN optimization and application accelerations, setting up security solutions, design of effective bandwidth. He has expertise in management solutions and maintenance, and he has a very strong creative and design skill as well. He has a strong ability to think out of the box. He has a strong critical reasoning, analytical and diagnostic abilities. He's a team manager here at Cyberspace Group. Mr. Peter Osuere holds several professional qualifications and training from within and outside Nigeria. These include the Cisco Certified Inter-Network Expert, CCIE. He also has the Cisco Certified Network Professional Certification, which is the CCNP. He holds a postgraduate diploma degree in computer science at Ladoke Akintola University of Technology, Ogbomoso, and a Bachelor of Engineering degree in Mechanical Production Engineering from Enugu State University of Science and Technology. I can imagine the smiles on the people who went to these universities with. So please join me, everyone, as we welcome Mr. Peter Osuere. Thank you, Mr. Peter. You're welcome. You can proceed to share your screen, sir.
All right, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
I wonder the capacity of some of those details you're sharing. I hope you can see my screen now.
Not yet, sir, but we can see you because your video is on.
Okay.
Okay, it's up now.
Okay. Is all good?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me. I also want to extend my greetings to my boss, Mr. Odusami. Thank you so much. It's been a while, and it was quite insightful what you've just done here today, most especially speaking to the things that are upcoming that are not already here already. We need them to happen here so that the trajectory will change a bit for more attraction. So thank you so very much. Okay. Before us today is a topic that rings a bell, enhancing cybersecurity in financial infrastructure. It's indeed ringing a bell all across the nation and the region that we are living in. And it's also a serious issue, like Mr. Mike alluded to in his presentation. So today I'm just going to run you through some few lines, and of course we'll take the questions, and the details will definitely come in if we have a better timing and opportunity to share a little bit deeper. So I'm going to run you through this basically 5-point agenda on what to look at. So the first thing first, I needed to share with you the background, okay? So what is the background? What is the background? The background here is just like you can see on the screen. Nigeria today is 2024 record. We're having 205 million mobile connections that are registered. This is not news. So this is facts. 225 million mobile connections in 2024. And as we speak today, this is making approximately 91% of Nigeria's population. So Nigeria population today is standing at 225 million approximately. 205 million had connection. Now, if you go up there, you will see that EFI and A, okay, that is the Access to Finance Survey report. It shows something significant, that in 2020, 56% in 2020 to 64% in 2023, according to the 2023 report, is a formal financial inclusion growth. So in 2020, the figure was at 56, financial inclusion. In 2020, it was 56%. By 2023, it has grown to 64% in 2023. This is a result that shows 26% of Nigerians are financially excluded, just 26. So you can marry the data. As at that time, 26% are those that are financially excluded, just 26%, as at 2023. Now, from 2020, from 32% of 2020. Okay, now in 2024, this year, the target is to reduce it to 25%. 25%. If you ask me right now, have they achieved this 25%? Definitely yes. Definitely yes. So you can match this information also with the 205 million mobile connections. So that tells you a trajectory. Now, Nigeria had 122.3 million active bank customers. So please take note of these figures. 122.3 as at 2021, because these are the statistics that are already out, okay? Compared to 2026, okay? There is a number of client increase by over 60 million people. Now, if you now go by the population within this time, the country counts more than 200 million inhabitants, okay? And the adults made up of more than half of the inhabitants as at 2021. Now, this same group, the credit card penetration in Nigeria as at that time was very low, okay? It was less than 3% of people with age 15 years and older have credit card as at that time. But you and I know where we are today. This 3% is just a joke as we are today. Now, if you take a look at these statistics, you could now clearly see something, a battle ahead. And that is why the problem keeps increasing, because The sector, as of today, the financial sector generally, you could clearly see from the statistics that they've powered well over 50% of the population, as in consistently, they've powered over 50% when you put all this data together. However you get through this data, you will see one information, that the financial institution has powered well over 50%. So one will say infrastructures are getting matured in some area. And this is the background of what we are trying to speak to. The question, therefore, is that, is it therefore important? Is it therefore true that cybersecurity infrastructure should be enhanced based on this theme topic? My answer will be yes, because from what you are seeing, if they want to reduce 25%, they want to reduce to 25% in this 2024, and I'm very, very sure they've already achieved this. By the end of 2024, that data will come out. You could see that they've just added more numbers of people. And we all know, every person who is in love with security knows, every door, every source is a potential challenge point. It's a potential leakage point. It's a potential escape route. Every point. So if you are speaking to it in that manner, you will now understand the enormity of the problem that lies ahead. If infrastructure as regards cybersecurity is not looked into and enhanced, for me, I look generally, I say today, all other areas, therefore, in the ICT space, for me, as regards to Nigeria, is consolidating already. For instance, application processing, we stay at a particular consumption level for a stretch of time as the numbers come, because the backend processing is what we increase the capacity, not the application itself. So when you look at it from that perspective, I could tell you hardware infrastructures like servers, like the application itself and all of that, every other thing at the back end that is functioning to make the client achieve an optimal service, they are consolidating. Storages and all of that, they are consolidating. The ICT space has gone in Nigeria, so to speak, they've gone through all of that. But when the number is increasing, all they will simply do is let us increase capacity. This is not so when it comes to cybersecurity. And that is the background. That is why this theme is quite crucial. And this statistics is quite obvious for every party to sit back and begin to look at what are we going to do, how are we going to do it, and all of that. I want to go on to the next page. So let us speak about understanding the background and implications. So I want to run you through some things. As it relates to cybersecurity of infrastructure and services uses, both internal and internal customers. This is for both internal and internal customers. It started from trust. So what is trust? Trust, therefore, this was the era where everybody come to work. You just come to work, you just plug your laptop and you start working. Your laptop has it has nothing, security, anything. The least maximum he has is maybe one endpoint something there that just scan. And at that time, we don't used to pay attention to this thing itself. In fact, the maximum I could remember at this time is the OS itself and whatever comes with the OS. We were there and everybody would just work and go. Wherever you go to, you come back to work. And so everybody was trusted, everybody was. So that is a trust era. We move on to partial trust era. Take note, I'm running through these things. Some of them are in the way I experienced them, which I believe most of you here will experience the same thing. Partial trust. The partial trust era was that era where issues started coming up. We said, oh, this problem is this problem is that. Okay, let's begin to have some control on some things. And then you now put a password. You now passworded some things, and one of the bosses came to office in the morning and he could not log on into his system. I mean, some of us almost receive memo. What kind of rubbish? What a nonsense. Like, come on, remove this thing. How can you be passwording my system? And so we have an era where a whole crop of personnel in the office, some, the bosses, they were not using anything controlled, no password, nothing. Their systems and everything was open, while every other stuff is controlled. So that was the partial trust era. Some people could not recover from the consequences of passwording their system. So we also recall in the days of AD just came in and, and it would be warning, change your password, take care of this, do that, do this. The bosses would be walking away. They don't even look at it and all of that. Then they came to work the next day, PC has rebooted and it's asking them to now put the password and change something. They get very upset. And so in those era, we remove them. And some of us will be controlled while others were not. I'm sure most of you passed through those era. That was partial trust era. Now you will get full trust and zero knowledge. Now, at the time of full trust and zero knowledge, I will talk to you a little bit about what those things imply. Full trust and zero knowledge, okay? We come to a time where we trusted everything that is inside, but we don't trust anything that is outside. So as at this time, the bosses begin to see consequences. They began to see that when they travel and they come back with their laptops, when they come back with their phones and all of that, they are coming with problems inside the company, inside the business. By the time we are doing some general checks and general scans we used to do, we will be seeing a whole backlog of all forms of malwares, antivirus, viruses, all manner, Trojans, everywhere. You will see, you scan, you see a whole bucket of virus, all manner, Trojan, all manner, worms everywhere in their PC. And then we began to talk, and there were some things began to show up, and gradually, they moved. So by the time they moved, we entered the era of full trust inside. So everybody inside trusted. But outside, no, we don't trust. Okay, I'll talk to you about that later. Now, in the era of partial trust, something used to happen. In that era, there's an era we were not touching at all. That was the era where developers develop applications without security at all. So it's just the software. Their concern is just the application. Just develop it. Develop it, host, put it in that server there. But it's running. Oh, use it. We start using it. So we saw situation, we experienced situation where PCs will be clean, staffs will be clean, but the source, the application itself is dirty. So from the application, because it's authorized to be used internally, it's causing problem. Okay, so that gradually shifted to the era of zero knowledge. So zero knowledge was a particular era. I'll speak to you about it later. Now we move from that area where, so into the era where we talked about the zero trust and zero knowledge. So zero trust and zero knowledge era is an era where inside and outside is not trusted. Inside and outside, not trusted. In other words, company, staff, whosoever, from the highest authority to the least user in the field. Users here refer to customers, not trusted. That is zero trust, okay? The zero knowledge remain the way it is. And then we are in the corridor, zero trust and full knowledge. I'll talk to you a little bit about them. I want to believe what I just described, a lot of us can resonate, some of the background and how it has come this far. What, therefore, the financial infrastructure security in Nigeria today? What is the position? The financial infrastructure security in Nigeria today is in full trust and zero knowledge. That is where we are today. As a matter of fact, majority of, I don't want to believe that there is any organization, not just financial institution, organization in Nigeria that is still operating partial trust. I don't know if there is any organization in Nigeria that is still operating partial trust. If you know that organization, please beg them, because they will be in a very serious trouble by now. But in Nigeria today, majority of the ones doing very well, at least they are thriving, they are getting better, they are doing well, they are in full trust and zero knowledge. So what do we talk about full trust? What is full trust? If you look at my screen, all of us will understand VPNs. A VPN is a path security, path, P-A-T-H security solution between its source and its destination. Attackers are always working hard to break it as the man in the middle attack. They are always working hard to drop it. They will not stop. They will just not stop. That will continue. Okay? Now, your VPN trusts fully that inside is clean. It trusts fully inside is clean. In fact, how do you describe that? It's because your VPN has a perimeter device. It's either a server or a security appliance, soft or hard, or it's a router you are using to do whatever you are doing. That is the perimeter device. So, but anything that flows into that perimeter device, VPN assumes that thing to be clean. It assumes that thing to be trusted. And that is the model of what full trust is about. So your typical VPN is a full trust model. It trusts everything. It means it believes everything coming into him to go out is clean. That's full trust. Now, when you talk about zero knowledge, so zero knowledge, remember I explained there was a time programmers, developers develop applications and the rest, and they don't put security in it. It's just blank like that. So that was an era like that, and we use the applications, obviously. Now, until we began to see a whole lot of problems. Once they take hold of the application, we are all gone. Everybody is sweating, problem everywhere. And that gave rise to zero knowledge. So zero knowledge is the model of data encryption and protection. So it's zero knowledge that deals with all your data encryption and protection in-house, all of that. That's what zero knowledge is about. So today, in the financial institution, you will see this. If you are doing anything VPN, you are operating full trust model. If your database and all of that is having some level of encryption, data encryption, and some level of protection around it, that is zero knowledge. That's what it is. But as you speak, it's advancing. If you look towards my left hand end, you will see that Gartner published this information. Virtual private networks have been the traditional secure way of remote accessing corporate environments. But a new concept referred to as zero trust has been gaining popularity these last few years. In fact, Gartner has predicted that 70% of new companies will transition away from VPNs to zero trust-based networks by 2025. As I speak to you, a lot of that is happening at the moment. There is a movement that is happening. If you also look at the screen, you will see how your typical VPN functions. All right? Now, because of the internal trust for VPN to go, there is a whole lot of gaps that happen at the inside because your VPN cannot look at the inside. It just cannot. a whole lot of gaps goes on the inside, okay? And majority of these, the organizations have tried their best to bring together a whole lot of standalone solutions that are doing different things within the system. That whole act that you are seeing was an act to close out what VPN cannot do, because VPN cannot cannot work without trusting the inside. So all of that, that's what gives rise to all the things you're seeing in the inside of the infrastructure. So this is the position we are today in Nigeria. Like I explained before, every other area of the IT consolidates, only security that cannot consolidate. And it will never consolidate. It will keep going. And every loophole that has been seen before is still being exploited till tomorrow. Until you find a solution to it, it will be repeated. Because the young minds are coming up, they start from some background, some of the ones people have done before. They've just tried, some of them still work, and they move on with it. So there is no stopping for cybersecurity. It keeps rising. And why is it so? The statistics I showed you in the first page, that number keep growing. Every single bin that is added, if a fintech onboard a customer, just one customer, it has just brought in one hole, one mole, okay, has just entered. That is how cybersecurity is perceived, and that is the truth as it happened. So we tend to look at the future. What is the future? So you and I know today zero trust, zero-day security vulnerabilities. In fact, zero-day security vulnerabilities for me is the most scary one for me most times, because zero-day security vulnerabilities are they are vulnerabilities that you don't even know they are there. So the attacker will be the one that will find out that they are there. When they find out, it's called zero-day, because before you will recover, they have done what they want to do. Because before you recover, the programmer, the developer, we have to go and we have to identify the flaw. We have to identify the flaw. And most times, identification of the flaw is by consequences. So whatever they want to do, they have done it. The consequences are shown up before they were identified. Some time ago, which was the last, some time ago, permit me not to mention the company, we were called by an organization that was taking over, completely taking over. It's a major organization in Nigeria, a very big one at that. They were taking over. What happened? They attacked one of their base file server and encrypted all the data there and put a code there. When you launch it, it will just simply tell you to send this amount of Bitcoin to this place, and you will get the decryptor, and then you will open your file, you continue to work. In fact, all organizations they called, they ran out. They ran away. This is a true story. And they called us. We stepped into it and looked at what was happening. Of course, we roll out our recovery process strategies. And the good and summarized part of the story is that we recover them. So, but recovering them was not recovering the entire files that was encrypted. No. In fact, we quarantined the entire organization and excluded that entire portion. It's a farm. It's a farm, okay? Excluded that entire portion and begin to deal with this issue. We finally restored them. Now, what happened? So to date, we gave them a structure that As we speak today, to date, nobody has been able to do anything there. Nobody has been able to enter. Now, what actually happened? How did that happen? What happened was that it's just password, as simple as password. You can imagine such a massive organization. They have a maximum privilege password, right? That is used by more than one person. It was looking like this, the era of our partial trust to the full trust. In that era, we got to a time where because the control must be, and we don't want to offend the bosses because, of course, you almost take a query to go home. We will give them highest privilege password. We'll give it to them. In fact, you give it to some, they don't even want to type password. They don't want at all. We now created it such that they don't log in. So we just logged it in, so it's open. That was an era we went through before we enter full trust. Now, that same privileged password was being used by more than one person. And by the time we were probing how the issue came about, we now noticed what happened. Because we were able to fetch it out, how they came in, what they used in coming in and all of that, we were able to bring it out and we showed it to them. That was an experience here, and it was a very messy one. So what is the future? Because of this full trust model inside, because of the full trust model, this gap internally will always and always be there. Organizations are doing their best to reduce it, but I tell you, is a lot of things are still going on. A lot of things are still going on within the inside. A lot of things are still going on when it comes to security, lapses, vulnerability, all of that still going on, A to Z, every now and then. Now, because of this zero-day security attack is gaining more ground. So it's increasing by the day. This is a serious issue for the security landscape, like you can see. So the future is now, like we can say it, the future is now. There is zero trust and zero knowledge already. Zero trust and zero knowledge. I told you the highest, okay, let me put it this way. The highest number of organizations that have done so well in the security landscape as we speak, there are those that are operating the full trust, zero knowledge system at the moment. That's the highest that we have at the moment. I am not too sure if any organization, neither do I know any. If you know, that would be good. If you're already there, that would be fantastic. It's operating zero trust and zero knowledge. So what is zero trust? Zero trust simply meant what it is, all right? It requires users, devices to be authenticated and authorized continuously. So zero trust uses the concept of no trust at all, inside and outside. Both the user and the owner of the services not trusted. What that means is it doesn't matter how high you are, even if you are the owner of the business, you are not trusted. That is the summary of it. So if you are the owner of the business, you're not trusted. If you are the user who is using the services, you're not trusted. That's what zero trust stands for. So zero trust is not VPN. So VPN is out of it. That was why Gartner, you saw that statement from Gartner, that by 2025, 70% of the businesses would have moved into zero trust environment, where it's a total trust from in, out, all right? That is what zero trust stands for. Zero knowledge will still be there. Encryption of your data, protection of your data at rest, will still be there. And as it moves, it will still be there. So this is perhaps the future, so to speak, because majority have not even entered at all. But some organizations seem to have started, they have a roadmap for it, they are going gradually. And it is crucial for financial institutions to gradually try to go into that space, into zero trust and zero knowledge focused need. Now, somebody may ask, what is zero knowledge about? So before, what used to happen is this. So let me go back to, let me use a simple VPN. All right. You know very well today when you are creating your VPNs, you exchange parameters. I will tell you, give me your VPN parameters. Then I will give you my own. So you already have my parameters configured in your environment. I will configure your parameter in my environment, and then you will send the sync packets. All right. And if the IKE sessions are successful, and then it will establish for us to be able to progress. So that will happen. Now, what has just happened? What has just happened is that I gave you my parameters, my key, everything I gave to you. You gave me your own. That is why. If you look at the diagram on the right-hand side, you will see what something deviating from that. Look at Bob and Alice. I just decided to use this, Bob and Alice. I'm sorry if anybody is called Bob and Alice. This is just a thought. Apologies. So, Bob, there is a puzzle over their head. And Bob says, no idea about solution. But I think Alice should know it. That is Bob's thinking. And Alice, why Bob was thinking that, obviously, Alice responded. So, I know the solution to the puzzle. Bob will challenge Alice. Prove it. I challenge you. Then Alice will respond with the answer. What that means is that those keys I used to give you, all those things I used to give you will be off the table. And this is part of why we are having, it's part of the greatest problem we still have today. Exchange of parameters. I mean, when Oga Mike was speaking, he made mention of the the shortcode messages and all that, the SME exchange and all of that. We change parameters, and it's a serious vulnerability as we speak. This is what is being eliminated. Is something very unique. And that is where the zero knowledge is coming to play. I don't need to give you a key. I need to give you exchange key before you will know what you're going to do. If you know it, you will come. And when you come, what you claim that you know, I already have it. When you come, it will be what you claim you know that I have. And then we will establish. That is what that is about. So this is the future as it pertains to us. But outside our client, majority of the organizations, they've moved in there. And like Gardner has reported, about 75% will be moving by 2025. Now, still on the future, it's good when Oga Mike was speaking, it was making mention of some things. If you look at here, you will see TLS. It's part of the major problem that we're talking about. Credentials exchange, secret passwords. So secret passwords, client and server could be intercepted, yes. And it's part of all the major issues that we are looking at. Your operation system, all right, when you talk about escalated privilege attacks and compromised credentials, malicious root application can capture your information, all right? If your VPN lands, let's say the man in the middle is not able to break it. If your VPN lands in the terminal device, between the terminal device and the exposure, it's not there, all right? If that terminal device is having a rogue application, it will capture it. it will get the data exactly as it is and bring it out, and they'll do what they want to do. Now, if your VPN is broken in between as a man-in-the-middle attack, what generally happens is that because the encrypted data is wholesome and is sent, whenever they break it and they get it, what is next is to get the key. If they're able to get the key, they will open it, they get the data. And that is exactly how the VPN side also is. So
Hello,
our
sir.
traditional, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can, but I sent you a message if you could check that.
Oh, okay,
Thank you.
just a minute. So our traditional view towards what we are looking at is indeed serious for us to be able to know exactly what we're going to be doing in the next phase. So let me move on to the next stage quickly. Today, like I told you, the zero trust with full knowledge. That is where it is today. That is where we're going. So the trustful environment, if you look at point 1, TLS, a certificate and session exchange will happen. And it goes to the user. The user filling the credentials. The credential is exchanged. That is trustful. It's exchanged with the backend, the DBs, and then it's returned back to the customer. And of course, it gets value. And between this entire circle, things happens as we speak. So what is the full trust and zero knowledge? I have explained that to you already. How does it look? For time's sake. So how does it look? This exactly look. So how does the zero trust and full knowledge look? So there is a dimension to now beginning to when your encryption and your protection, the data spot, when it happens, it disintegrates. Okay, it is wholesome traditionally as it is today, but in that dimension they are going into now, it will disintegrate, and the crucial data will be kept somewhere, and it will be sent at different packet headers. When you break anything, you will get some, you will not get some. And if you break anything and you get something, when you decode, when you open, you are not able to get it complete because the crucial data has been extracted and kept in a vault and is sent end to end. And this is happening from the user to your typical DB. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. It's established. That is the full zero trust and full knowledge as it is. So that is how it looks. I want to stop here and say thank you for your time. You can take over now, Remy.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. That was an enlightening session. It was like Mr. Mark took us through the practical and you're taking us through the technical. Thank you, sir. I didn't have certain knowledge of cybersecurity, but today, yeah, I think I knew what VPN was, but I went further by learning what PATH is, PATH service, securities. And then I also learned about the zero knowledge technology and the zero trust technology. So yes, we're still talking about the future, having a recordless password or data system when it comes to your applications or your devices. And now we're talking about a system not recognizing you, even if you're the owner of the organization, but only understanding the expected language that you're supposed to send, which is based on the knowledge. Thank you so much. We have a couple of our CyberPay customers here. I'm sure that they were able to pick one or two from there. So please, if there are questions, remember to drop them in the Q&A session. And we would also invite you to speak. If you would like to speak, just raise up your hand. So still speaking about our customers who are on the call, I'm sure that we have learned a lot about how we can secure our businesses from Mr. Peter. If you have more questions, if you like any form of consultation, you can reach out to us, and we can always also ensure that Mr. Peter attends to it. So taking questions, I can see Mr. Jubril Rufai's hand is up. Mr. Jubril, if you'd like to proceed, please ask your questions before we go to the chat room. Hi, Mr. Jubril, can you hear me? Okay. So I have a question, Mr. Peter, before we start taking other people's questions. For an upcoming company, or do I say an uprising fintech company, how do we ensure that we start to implement the zero trust system so that we start to live in the future from now?
Okay, thank you so very much. The first and first is to first of all understand your is ground up, okay? It's to first of all understand your business and understand the risk associated with the business. Because security requirement is as pertains to business. And that's why one of the greatest flaw I used to see in environment is people procuring products because they had somebody procure that same product. Meanwhile, it's not necessary for their business. So you must understand things from that perspective. And then you must also understand standards. So you work by standards as it also pertains to your business and to be able to develop your security structure. So from ground zero, from the very beginning on the local usage, all of these we use to build a type of products and a type of security that you need to learn before you now step it up. If I'm doing an external service to users, okay, this is how I want to go. This is what I want to take. This is what I don't want to take. And all of these are also binding by security standards and what the regulations also saying, because of course, in the financial sector, for instance, there are regulations, there are patterns, there are standards they want you to also use. But all of this is what you put together to get that done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Peter. Mr. Jubril decided to drop his question instead, so I'll just read it out. In the event of a major cybersecurity breach in a financial system, what best practices should be in place for incident response and recovery to minimize damage?
Thank you so much, Mr. Jubril. That's a beautiful question. So the first statement I'm going to make is that the financial institution, that particular financial institution, must have recovery strategies that they've adopted. There are different strategies that is the standard that is adopted, okay? So they must have such. If not, they don't have such, they must develop something about that, okay? Now, based on what their own approach is, all right? Because, so let me give you a clear example why that is very crucial. For instance, one person, let me use the financial institution, a bank, for instance. One man cannot be defrauded. And you say because that single person is defrauded, the bank will have to stop operating until you fix that man's matter. Then you now open service to another person. You know, that will cause problem. Okay, so that is where that practice come to place, those standard practices come to place, or strategy. So how will it be? I will take it from the angle of what you have, okay, on ground. What is your recovery strategy? What have you, your response strategy? What do you have? We take that up and try to implement that particular bit. So if it depends on whatever has happened, like today, if I take a typical example, when somebody is being defrauded and this account is hit, what happened? The next thing they tell you is that block the account, isn't it? That's a response approach. Block the account. After blocking the account, what next? Internally, they all have their standard process they're going to start going through. Where did this money came from? How did it come? Where did this, how did the person enter you? How did they leave? What did they use? All of that. Until they find how it came. All right. They will not go and start trying to defend that place. Okay, before they will move forward. So it's a whole lot that you sit down and atomize how you want to do it as it relates to your business. So there's not enough time for me to be able to get down to all the details for you here, Jibril, but I'm always available on call, on email, anything to the team. I hope I answered Jibril.
Yes, sir. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So because of time, I think I'll just send questions to you and we'll be able to get back to people who have asked more questions. We still have another session. So please, everyone, if you have questions, you can still drop it in the Q&A session and we would ensure that we get back to you with the responses, either by typing or sending emails to people who have asked the questions. So on this note, I'd like to say thank you so much, Mr. Peter. It was really nice having you as a panelist at the webinar. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate your time. So moving on to the last panelist, I mentioned that for those who are curious, this webinar is proudly brought to you by Cyberpay. And we have our next panelist, who is Elvis Ifekam. Mr. Elvis Ifekam has over 18 years work experience. He is a business leader. He's also a fintech leader who has over 18 years experience, like I mentioned. He has experience in business development and technology sales. And he has experience in the banking sector, in the direction of the operations management, cards, sales, e-business procedures. He has also been a key account manager at some point. He has expertise in the acquiring business, payment system business, the financial inclusion business. He has worked at Zenith Bank PLC. He also was the head financial institution at Unified Payment Systems Limited, and now he is the country head of Cyberpay Limited. Please join me as we welcome Mr. Elvis Ifekam to tell us more about Cyberpay. Hi, Mr. Elvis, you have the floor.
Hello, Remy. Thank you so much for that very elaborate introduction. You're looking so good this morning. It's afternoon already.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you to the two other, presenters, and I would say it's been very insightful. So I know time is fast spent. I wouldn't really waste much time about my presentation. It's just a couple of slides, and I'll just dive in quickly. Can you see my slide, please?
Yes, we can.
All right. So I'll be talking basically on just a few things here. I wouldn't really take your time. Sorry. All right. So this is the outline for my presentation, just not more than 6 slides. So about Cyberpay. Cyberpay was actually, founded to actually solve market frictions. Realized that a couple of merchants or different sectors have different and peculiar needs. So we sat down and came up with different solutions. And part of what we do today is that we have very simple and basic APIs that would help, solve these market frictions for collections, payments, and more. So we are licensed fintech by the CBN. We have a PSSP license. We also have a PTSP license, and we also power some vast value-added services. So I can beat my chest today and tell you that your transactions are very secure with us because we are PCI certified. That means we have the highest level of PCI, payment card data industry certificates. Over and beyond that, we also have ISO, both business continuity. So with your business with us, we have failover where there's probably a disaster or natural, issues. I can tell you that today, some companies have actually, left Meduguri as we speak, and they can carry on their businesses. So what we have today, we have failover for all our services. Excuse me. So we also have the information security, also very important because your data is safe with us. All right. So we also are very compliant when it comes to data protection. So like I mentioned, part of why we're here is to ensure that we are the partner of choice in the financial technology industry and we want to facilitate transactions globally. That's our mission. So some people are wondering why CyberPay? Today we have very simple API-based integration. So even if you are not so techy, you can actually do business with us. We have tokenization or recurring debit opportunities for insurance companies, people who actually do loan businesses, and others. So we also have very secured requery system, which means that our transactions, once a transaction happens today, you can actually requery, our system can requery and get the finality of that transaction before we give you a feedback. Then we also pride ourselves with prompt settlement of transactions. It's so automated so that at the click of a button, once transactions are done, the various parties get their shared funds or get their funds as it were. Then today we also have various models, payment models. We have the cards, we have the bank accounts, we have bank transfer, which is virtual accounts that people call it today. We have USSD, QR. We even have the in-era as well. Then we have multiple processing channel and switching channel. So what this means is that at every point in time, our systems are up and running. That's why we have very high transaction success rates. And basically, as simple as customers who do not even have a website or merchants who do not have a website, we also give those people a reporting dashboard that will aid their reconciliation, aid their viewing of how transactions have actually happened on the platform. So these are some of the products and services that we have today. We have a mobile app. You can go to the iOS store and download. You can go also to the Play Store and download for different kinds of phones. So we also build portals for customers. We have that which we use to actually service our customers. We build mobile apps, web apps for merchants, customers. We are into the microinsurance business. We have a marketplace that is actually being worked on as we speak. We have the social media, or it's called Link Pay, where customers who sell, like the people who sell bags, shoes on Instagram and Twitter that do not have websites, we just create a link for them and they can use that to make payments. We also have the USSD solutions for people who do not have Android phones or you do not have the iPhones. So your phone today, just with your phone number, the feature phones, the local parlance is called the Palasa phones, all right, where you can use data on it. You can actually start and complete a payment transaction with our solutions, all right? So we also have the solution for the pension industry. We have the pen remittance. We also have the micro pen, all right? So we also have disbursement or payer solution. We have loan repayment solution. And the use cases for the various solutions or products that we have are actually categorized into 4. We have the collections, we have the disbursements, we have the VAS and POS business. So for the collections, we have basically 2. We have the payment gateway and the recurring payments. Then for disbursements, we have the single and bulk disbursements. Then for VAS, we also have the SMS, airtime, and bills payments. For the POS business, we have terminal sales and terminal support. So we also have the outsourcing. So the use case today for collections, which is basically, this rides majorly on our PSSP business, and we have various sectors that actually can use us. So what this does today, the collection solutions that we have today is just to ensure that we enable our merchants to collect either various fees or monies from their customer. So a good example is an e-commerce website or e-commerce business where you've gone to open a website, you say you want to sell various items, you want to provide various services on the website. How do you collect your funds from your customers? That's where CyberPay comes in. So for airlines as well, today we know we have a couple of airlines. You can sit comfortably in your office or from your home. You can actually make payments for your tickets. So we can integrate our payment gateway with any ticketing platform. No matter the language that the ticketing platform rides on, we have that API for that sector, which is airlines. So for ride hailing as well, the likes of Uber, InDrive, whatever it is that you have today, you can add as well, link our payment gateway to your ride hailing app, and as such, people can pay seamlessly for services rendered. So betting companies are also on the table. You can use our collections solutions today to collect for your customers to fund their wallets. We have a couple on our books today. All right, so we also have the logistics and delivery, for churches as well, for even schools. We build EduPortal for schools. You want to pay for school fees online. You want to do distant learning, LMS, we have that. You want to actually do certificate ordering. You want to do transcript ordering. We can actually build your EduPortal from start to finish. So for disbursement too, disbursement basically is how customers disburse monies to various entities. It could be staff salaries, how you pay your staff salaries, we can handle that. It could be insurance companies, giving loans to their customers. It could be microfinance banks giving loans to their customers. It could be loan companies giving loans to their customers. So also, we have betting companies that do disbursements as well today. So what this means is that you have actually gone to, play a bet and you have won maybe like 1 million. The betting companies can use our APIs to disburse those funds to their various customers who have won. So you can also use our disbursement APIs for bursary payments, for scholarship payments, all right? So the next one I want to talk about is the POS business. So for POS business, we have various, we have partnerships with various OEMs. I would want to mention names here, but we have partnerships with as many OEMs as you can think of. If you want to buy terminals as a commercial bank, you can come to CyberPay. You want to buy accessories for your terminals. You want to even do as low as repairs, all right, which is very, very basic as some people would think, but it's very crucial to the success of your company. We can actually repair your terminals for you. So we can also customize. We also have applications that we customize for various sectors, for airlines, for ride hailing, for betting companies, logistics, deliveries, churches. You want to customize your application to give to your customers, you can actually come to CyberPay for that. And we do that as quickly as we can. So for VAS as well, we have SMS, airtime, and bills payment. So we have different, customers, that we offer these services to. For commercial banks today, you have both transactional and transactional and promotional SMSs. So if you do a transaction today, probably you go to withdraw money from your bank. There's a debit alert that comes with it. We can push those SMSs, and you go to credit your account as well in the bank. We can push the credit alerts to the end users. So we can also do that for e-commerce, because today we know that sometimes you don't want to do in-app notifications. You want to send SMSs to your customers who have gone to your payment gateway or your e-commerce website to purchase different items. You can actually push a message to them to say, oh, we received your item and we delivered. Even giving them updates of your delivery, that can be done. For airlines too, you know, today most airlines actually cancel or reschedule flights. You can use our service to actually push those SMSs to the various passengers. For ride hailing, for betting companies, for logistics, churches, you can actually use us for those businesses. So if you have questions, I would take them now. But in summary, I can tell you for a fact that it's just majorly 4 solutions that, you know, you can do that. And there are others we can also do. You can reach us, you know, for such. So if you have questions, comments, I will take them now, because I know time is fast spent, and we would want to actually allow people to do other things that they have scheduled to do today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Elvis. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So please, if there are questions, please drop them in the Q&A chat room, and they will be willing to respond to you. Or if you would like to speak, we'll be willing to also unmute you to speak. So just a few housekeeping and announcements. We'll be having another webinar in December to round up the year. I'm sure this was a very insightful session. Trust us to come back to you with a more interesting and knowledgeable topic. And like I said, in December, we'll be coming with more insightful topics for you. Please feel free to send your feedbacks, your questions to us at hello@cyberpay.net.ng or team@cyberpay.net.ng. Until then, I'd like to say thank you once again to everyone who joined the webinar. Either you started from the beginning or joined in the middle of the session. I'm sure it was an insightful and a knowledgeable one. Also, we learned about the theoretical aspect, the technical aspect, and the practical aspect of cybersecurity. If you're a business owner, ensure that you're able to incorporate these new learnings into your business. If you're an individual, please learn, for example, the technology that you could use to hide your information, either on your mobile device or on your laptops or desktop devices. And until December, I'd like to say thank you once again to everybody. We're available to meet with your needs or attend to your needs at CyberPay. Do have a great day. Bye.
If I may quickly speak before we round off, please. If you want to, in closing, there are 3 things I just have here. FFS actually. There are 4 major solutions we spoke about for disbursements, for collections, for POS business, and VAS, which also have other, you know, solutions beneath them. Then the second F is follow us on all our social media handles at CyberPay Nigeria. We have on LinkedIn, on Instagram, just follow us, search for CyberPay Nigeria, you'll see us. Follow us on all those social media handles, because we'll give you updates. You can reach out to us. Also, shoot us a mail to team@cyberpay.net.ng, and we look forward to actually, you know, doing business with you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your time, and thank you, friends. And you know, we are here to actually serve you. You can reach us at any time, and we can tell you that our customers